Okay, we're going. All right, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to Gordo and the F Words. I'm coming at you from sunny Florida. I don't know if you guys have ever been here. Florida is lovely. It's a place we've come a few times to get away, and it's really great. We come to the west coast of Florida, the Tampa area, and it's really nice. We've been here for a few weeks, and it's been a really nice, just for rejuvenation and rest. A great vacation. And today, I want to talk about, I'm reading through the Dune series right now because I love Dune. I'll do a whole thing about Dune another time, but I love Dune. I love the new Dune movies. I love Denis Villeneuve. I love Dune. And my love for Dune goes back to when I was a kid. And my mom would get these Columbia, I think they were Columbia magazines that you could order like movies from, and it'd be like $1, 10 movies, but then there's some kind of subscription. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it was. And we're going through this catalog, picking movies, and for some reason we looked and we saw Dune. I don't know how we picked it. I don't know. I know my mom had the Dune novels in her bookcase, and I would look at them and the covers. I'm guessing at some point she said it's kind of like Star Wars. I don't know for sure. But we picked it, and I saw it when I was a kid. It was a 1984 movie by David Lynch, and I loved it. And my second email address I ever made was muad'Dib@telus.net. So my affection for Dune goes back a long ways. Anyway, I've read the first Dune book probably 3 times now. And I read the first 3 books in the series a few years ago before the first movie came out. And the first movie by Denis Villeneuve. And it's an interesting series. It's an interesting book series for a few reasons. It's kind of political, philosophical, and at times can be a bit hard to process or digest. But there's something really captivating about them at the same time. And so when the second Dune movie got released this year, hopefully wins Best Movie of the Year. In my opinion, it's Best Movie of the Year. And we can talk about that another time too. I just was like, man, I want to know like what's still out there in this universe. Like, I don't really think they're going to make it. It's too expansive and kind of too weird, I think, to make into a blockbuster type like movie series ongoingly. And I'm at this point in my life, I'm probably more of a fan of like make something great and make something that works well for the film medium, because you have stories that are great for the book medium. You have stories that are great for the film medium. You have stories that cross those plateaus, and then you have stories that do not cross those plateaus. And then you have times where, I think there's just a lot that goes into that. And even, this is crazy too, like when I watched the new Dune movie, I was like, this is so much like the book. And then I reread the book and I was like, they actually changed quite a bit. The overarching story was pretty much the same, but there's like pretty clear details that are like way different between the book and the movie. But to be honest, I'm okay with that. Like when I was younger, I was like, make it exactly the same. Don't take the Christmas out of Harry Potter. What are you doing? And I would hate it if they ever did that. But now I'm like, well, they're totally different mediums. You know, if you're reading a book, you have to be aware of that. You're watching a movie, you have to be aware of that. Like, for instance, in a book, you're going to get narration. You're going to get narration by the first person, or it could be a different person. But there's going to be narration telling you what's going on, what people are thinking. There's going to be dialogue in people's heads. And in movies, typically, you actually don't want that. You don't want narration. You don't want dialogue in people's heads, because if you're doing a good job using all the tools involved in a film, you don't need that. It's like you can strategically use it, but it has to be strategic. If you're using it because you feel like the story isn't making sense based on how it's been filmed, you're just like, I think you're just kind of missing the mark with the medium, and either the story isn't fitting or maybe you didn't do a good job making a movie. That's something with the original Dune movie. There's a lot of voiceover, and I think it's because the book has a lot of voiceover, so I understand why they did it. But I think if you're using movies right, you don't necessarily need it. You shouldn't need it. Voiceover should be a additional, yeah, just like an additional. It should just add. That's what you need. Everything doing in a movie has to add to the experience. And there's so much, like, you can see people's faces. You can use music. You can get emotion from people. Like, you can tell what they're thinking without actually hearing it. And the original Dune movie was just like so much voiceover. Anyway, so I'm reading through the books. In 2019, I got through the first Dune, I got through Dune Messiah, and I got through Children of Dune. And the progression in those stories is like it's a lot. And I got to the end of Children of Dune. I bought the fourth one, which is called God, Emperor of Dune. And I kind of just gave up. I was like, this is a lot. Everything that happens by the end of the third book is like a lot. And then what goes on to the next one is a lot. So here's what I'm going to tell you right now. Spoiler alert. And I'll stretch this out so you have lots of time to get out of this. But I'm going to talk about like the premise of God, Emperor of Dune. So this is spoiler alert. If you want to read the books that have been around for decades, 40, I think the first one goes back to the 60s and they go into the 80s. So they've been around a long time. But this is a spoiler alert. If you're trying to read the books, stop listening now. If you just want to get through and see what happens. If you're not going to read the books, I'm going to talk about something. Actually, I'm not even really going to talk fully about the book, but something that really stood out to me with the book. So spoiler, get off. That's it. Now you are morally culpable. If this is spoiled for you and you're still on and you're still listening or you're still watching, you are the one morally culpable for spoiling the story. Not me. It's not on me. Anyway, God, Emperor of Dune opens. It's 3,500 years from when the story of Dune takes place. So everyone dead. Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, has two children, twins. One he names after his dad. This is also not really talked about a lot. In the first Dune novel, spoiler alert, Paul has a son. He names him after his dad, Leto. That child dies in an attack on the Sietch where his family was staying. And so then you get to the end of the second book, and Chaney has twins, and he names the boy Leto the Second. But it's kind of Leto the Third because there was a different Leto the Second, and there's like a slight reference at one point, but there's no other real reference to that. Basically, that child that died in the first book. It's just, this is Leto the Second. And he undergoes a transformation that allows him to live an extended life. So we're 3,500 years in the future. Everyone from that original Dune storyline is gone, and except for Leto the Second. He's still alive. He's undergone this transformation. This is a big, you've probably seen memes already, but this is a big spoiler alert. He merges with baby sandworms and essentially creates like a protective body, and it stretches out his life, and he's able to live longer, but there's like a strategic purpose behind it. And in this future, he's emperor of the known universe, and he has terraformed the planet Dune to have almost no desert. There's one desert that is very small, and there's no living sandworms. And everything still rotates around the spice melange. And he doles out spice to all of these different societies as he sees fit, and everyone needs to respect and petition him. No one can kill him. This new sandworm body, he's like impenetrable. Nothing. He can't die from anything. And so he has set up the universe so everyone is in really like feudal systems, like they live in dirt villages basically, but there's peace. And he says, well, peace is contentment, and people say, well, you've taken away their freedom. And he says, yeah, but I gave them peace and content, and I've given them peace and life. Because when people have freedom, they get annoyed at their peace and they inevitably fight. And then he's also used women to form his army. So his army is only composed of women, and they keep everybody under his thumb, essentially. And then he has a like his right hand man. His name is Moneo, and they have this pretty cool relationship. Like Leto the Second, he can see ahead in time and he can see back in time. He can live previous lives through his cellular memory from his distant relatives, essentially. So he knows a lot. And his right-hand man has also undergone a procedure, a test, to let him get a glimpse of what Leto sees. So they have, and his right-hand man is a descendant of the Atreides. He's not Leto's descendant because Leto couldn't have kids when he went through this transformation with the sandworm, but he's a descendant of Leto's twin. And so they're technically family. And they have this kind of funny relationship at times where there's kind of a decent amount of sarcasm and things that go on. Anyway, and Leto is trying to test Moneo's daughter, Siona, to basically fill her purpose in the universe. In the Golden Path is what it's called. And so they're discussing his empire and they're discussing the different roles, and they talk about administration. And this like really struck me. I don't necessarily think this is like fully true, but it got me thinking. That's what I like about books, movies, TV shows. I don't necessarily like them to preach at me and say, hey, here's what you should think. Hey, this is how stuff works. Hey, this is what life is like. This is what you should do. But I like when they make me think and they let me, and when basically stories like make me contemplate, like, what do I think about that? What do I think is true? What do I think would be an accurate statement? But they're talking about administration, and Siona asks Leto, you want to use me in some way? And he said, I would. And she said, not as an administrator. And he said, I already have good administrators. And then he says, the difference between a good administrator, and I think you could interuse manager maybe with administrator with the way he's using this word. But he said the difference between a good administrator and a bad one is 5 heartbeats. Good administrators make immediate choices. And then Siona asks, acceptable choices? And Leto responds, they usually can be made to work. A bad administrator, on the other hand, hesitates, diddles around, asks for committees, for research and reports. Eventually, he acts in ways which create serious problems. Siona asks, but don't they sometimes need more information to make? And Leto cuts her off. A bad administrator is more concerned with reports than with decisions. He wants the hard record which he can display as an excuse for his errors. And Siona asks, what about good administrators? And Leto says, oh, they depend on verbal orders. They never lie about what they've done if their verbal orders cause problems. And they surround themselves with people able to act wisely on the basis of verbal orders. Often the most important piece of information is that something has gone wrong. Bad administrators hide their mistakes until it's too late to make corrections. And he goes on to say, one of the hardest things for a tyrant, he actually recognizes he's a tyrant because he has restricted freedom from the whole universe. And he says, one of the hardest things for a tyrant to find, he said, is people who actually make decisions. And that like really kind of touched me, I think, because I'm kind of on this journey of living like an assertive life and getting the most out of life. I went through this program a couple of years ago, and they I don't know where they got this information from, but they said assertive people live happier lives. And the reason is being that assertive people will, if they're upset with something, they'll do something about it. If they want to do something, they'll do something about it. And it's not like aggressive, like assertive and aggressive are two totally different things. But it was just saying they live happier lives because they do something about, I think, about their unhappiness. And they are just willing to take action. At the end of the day, they're willing to take action. And that's kind of a journey I've been on the last few years, actually for a long time, is willing to make action. And there's been points in my life where I have been quite fearful of taking action in case I make the wrong decision. That could be, I have a free day. What do I want to do with my day? I don't know. So I'm not going to do anything. And then you kind of waste a day. And sometimes I do that out of fear of like missing out on something better that'll come along in that day. But then it extends into work, and I'm responsible for a decision, and I feel like I need more information. I'm picking a software to use. Okay, I need to do all this research and whatever. And then I don't pick any software because I feel like I don't have enough information to make the decision. Or no, sorry, that's not right. It's actually that I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong decision and I need more information. And then, I've been in other like instances where we're always forming committees and looking for subcommittees and councils to like make decisions, and things just take like painstakingly long. And I think what stood out to me about this section of the book when Leto was talking is actually not even that he wasn't really highlighting what a good administrator is and necessarily like how much better their decisions are. I think he said acceptable decisions, acceptable choices. No, sorry. Siona asks him acceptable choices, and he just says they usually can be made to work. A bad administrator, on the other hand, hesitates, diddles, asks for committees, looks for research and reports, and eventually he acts in ways which create serious problems. He wants the hard record which he can display as an excuse for his errors. And I think that's something that kind of really stood out to me, and something I've been trying to process the last few years in work life, business life, personal life. I mean, all those are kind of the same thing, really. But is like it's okay to take action. Like, yeah, I mean, if there's something like standing out that should be informing your decision, and you do something completely contrary to that, okay, that could be said as a bad decision. But if you're a reasonable person that is that's looking at the data presented, and you can make a decision on it, that doesn't, and you can't necessarily tell one over the other is like more morally, not morally, but like just good or bad, then it's probably just like better to make the decision than do nothing. Something I've been doing since we've been on vacation here is looking at credit cards. Should we get a new credit card? And I had a friend refer us to a specific credit card, and we get a bunch more reward points for signing up if they refer us. But then it's like, well, is that the best credit card for us? And I'm just going through list after list and blog after blog, which one's better. And then finally, because it's like, it feels like a big decision because we're going to be probably sticking with the credit card for a long time. And then I found this Reddit comment on a thread that said, honestly, it's really hard making credit cards worthwhile organically, they said. This person said that it's better just to switch year after year and get all the sign-up bonuses you can from each one. And I was like, dang, like, it's kind of like, there it is again. Like, it's like, there is no best one. You probably should just pick one that is offering like a great sign-up bonus and then drop it after a year. And it's like, oh, like, there it is again. Like to take action is more important than not. And I think, yeah, something like this book said with that, I just thought, like, there's been too many times in my life where I'm kind of worried I'm going to get in trouble, and I'm worried that I'm going to get reprimanded for making the wrong decision, or I'm worried I'm going to miss out on something maybe more fun or fulfilling. But then it's like, at the same time, like, if there's no better information presented, you just make the best decision you can. Like, it's more important to do something than nothing. And I think, kind of going back to that program I did a few years ago with assertiveness, I've just been really compelled by this idea to be more assertive. And that might be making a choice in my personal life. That might be being action-oriented in my work. But it's still just kind of a general philosophy I'm always like working to embody a bit more. And again, like, I want to emphasize assertiveness is not like bullying. Assertiveness, and it's funny, we have to even like maybe it's funny that I feel like I need to like specify this, but assertiveness isn't bullying. Assertiveness is not like abuse. Assertiveness is just like kind of sticking up for yourself and just taking action, you know? Um, because like at the end of the day, you only have one life. You can't go back and change those decisions you made, or you can't really like, you can't. I'm not saying that to say like everything is permissible or anything, but just thinking like, it's probably just better to do something than nothing. Like I think it kind of goes to like systems, like our systems bogging us down, or are they streamlining us and allowing us to focus our efforts in greater ways? Like, I think that's something when it comes to the religious institution I was a part of previously, is when I kind of look at it from the outside, sometimes I just feel like, well, I don't necessarily see evidence that this is like streamlining and allowing energies to be focused. It just feels like things get like super bogged down in the work we actually want to do. And again, I don't really care. Like, I'm not even part of that anymore. But it just makes me look at my life and think like, I don't want to look back and like see that for my life. Like if we feel like there's like a good credit card to choose, maybe we should just choose it and then like look at another one after a year and pick one. Oh, that one seems good. And me and Alicia, like my wife and I, we can be pretty, she would probably be more action oriented and assertive than I would naturally. And what's nice is it kind of pushes me to do that too, and which has been kind of a nice journey, because I don't really want to be known as I guess according to Leto the second, as a bad administrator. I don't really want to just, I need to form like a council. I need to get people's opinion. And I mean, like, hey, hearing people's voices, I think is great. And bringing people into a decision is great. But actually, and this is bringing up a thought too, from the TV show Scrubs, from the 2000s, this like medical hospital kind of sitcom. And there's an episode where, how did that go? I had a really cool thing to tie in and I just totally lost it. Dang. That was a good reference. Scrubs is a good show. Yeah, dang, I'm annoyed I lost it. Oh, well. Anyway, like it's like, I want to, when I look at like what Leto said in this book, I think like for me to be a good or bad. Oh, no. This is what it was. I remember what I said. Okay. I remember what I said in Scrubs is there's like a scene where like one of the characters is asking other characters for their advice on a decision. And people are giving their feedback. And then he asks like one person in particular, maybe his mentor. Oh, I think what happened is he asked his mentor. His mentor gave him advice. And then the character responds and says, yeah, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. And then the mentor responds to him back and says, like, you're only like, why are you just asking people, like, you just want people to validate what you want to do? Like, you're not going to get by in life if you're just looking for people to validate what you already want to do. Like, just do it. Like, I don't care what you do, just do it. And that's something that's always kind of stuck with me a little bit. And I think when we're forming councils and we're asking people's opinions, there's a really fine line between like democracy thinking. I wish there was a cooler term, like democratizing this. Yeah, maybe that's it. Democratizing decisions and creating these groups so people just feel heard. I think it's actually a really awful thing to do. Oh, well, we'll create like our decision's already made, or my decision as decision maker's already made, but I'm going to form this like, or have this meeting and let people voice what they think. And then I'm going to just convince them to do it this way. It's like, man, just like do it your way. Like, I think that's something people in leadership don't necessarily understand is like, I think most people that work for them are probably 80% of the people that work for them don't really care the decisions they make. And there's 20 people that will always disagree with them. So you can't really do anything about that. And I think unless you're like really willing to democratize a decision, like just like make the decision, and if it does, like if you get poor even like it's kind of funny, even if you get poor feedback from your employees, doesn't even mean that you made the wrong decision. Like it depends. At the end of the day, you have to choose one lens that you're looking at a decision through to make it. And you can use multiple lenses, but at the end of the day, like if you have too many lenses and you don't make that decision, you do make that decision. You make that decision by not making that decision. And that's just something I don't really want to be like known for. Like I'd rather just be more decisive and just do things when it comes up. And, instead of thinking about texting someone, I'd rather just think about texting them and then text them. Because I think that's something I get stuck with too, is I think about messaging someone and reaching out, connecting. And I think about it when I'm not around my phone. And then when I'm on my phone, I don't think about it. That's something I just kind of want to adjust to. And that's something, yeah, like I said, with this book, with good old Moneo. That's what Leto II would say. Good old Moneo. Trusty Moneo. See, he makes decisions. Acceptable, not even like decisions that can be made to work. And it just kind of takes a bit of the pressure off too. Like, is this a decision that can be made to work? Like, again, unless there's a ton of info that is indicating it's not, then it's probably fine. I mean, then that's something like Leto says, right? Is he says, even if they're bad decisions, like bad administrators are going to cover it up with their counsels and their reports. Good administrators are just going to be honest, and they've already corrected it before they even talk to you probably. And that's, something I want to mark my life by, it's just something that kind of stood out. You're reading these books, reading a series that was written decades ago, and it's written about a time, an imaginary time, tens of thousands of years in the future. You're reading this dialogue between a half man, half giant sandworm tyrant emperor of the universe, and one of his distantly related relatives, and talking about administration. And that's something that I love about books, or that I love about movies, or I love about TV. TV is probably the lowest on my priority level. I think TV, from the audio-visual medium like that, I think you get the highest possibility of like the best story arc potentially, but also it can just take too long sometimes. Like if I watch a movie or a movie series, it's not going to take that long. If I watch a TV show, if I watch Breaking Bad, I think it's 65 episodes. And it's like, holy, 65 episodes. And if you just like average them at an hour each, they're probably 42 minutes. But it's just like 65 hours. If I get 1 to 2 hours of watch time, if I only get 1 hour of watch time a day in my life, that's all I can fit in. It's going to take me 2 months to watch that. If there's a great movie, I can watch that in 1 day. Although it doesn't really fit the 1 to 2 hour like watch window. But anyway, and then books are a bit different because they take probably even longer potentially than either of those sometimes. But you can kind of do it anywhere, like especially I just have a Kindle e-reader, not even sponsored. But I use a Kindle e-reader. I love it. It's got me back into reading 5 years ago. And you can literally take it anywhere. I can put the Kindle app on my phone and then I can read. And it connects, it syncs as long as my Kindle is on Wi-Fi. It'll be like, your last page was, this far ahead. You want to jump up to that. So it's pretty sick. And I just love that feeling of like, oh, what would I do? What do I think about this? Sometimes it's clearly like, that's wrong, that's immoral, that's unethical. Sometimes you think like, oh, that's super good and valid. But I like these moments that are like, ooh, like, what do I think about this? What would I do? What do I consider about this? And it just kind of gets like, you kind of have like a front hamster wheel in your brain that's going while you're reading the story. And there's like this second one that starts going. And that's what I kind of like about these stories. It gets that second hamster wheel going and makes you kind of consider your worldview a bit. again, what I like about this is, and I like about stories, is it just kind of like challenges you in a bit of a different way. Like no one really likes to be preached to. No one likes to be said like, you're wrong. Here's why. But I think most people are reasonable to consider if it's in a properly like presented manner to consider like, oh, like, yeah, what do I think about that? You know, and that's like a really enjoyable part of this stuff. Anyway, and so I finished this book. I'm on the 5th book called Heretics of Dune. I just found this out because Frank Herbert wrote 6 books. Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House Dune. When I saw Chapter House Dune when I was a kid, and even like the whole time I've been aware of it, I was like, did they name it after the publisher? Why is it called Chapter House Dune? That seems so dumb. Now I know I'm far enough in the story arc that I understand why it's called Chapter House Dune. But then apparently the way Frank Herbert intended this was to write the first 3 Dune books, Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune. God Emperor of Dune was like this pause in the middle, and then a second trilogy, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House Dune, and then Frank Herbert passed away. And so apparently his son, Brian Herbert, and he's co-written a bunch of Dune books with this other dude. I think they got into it by finishing the trilogy. They had to write 2 books instead of just 1. And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so I'm looking forward to kind of finishing that and seeing where this keeps going. I set, on my good old Goodreads, I set like a goal of reading 52 books this year. I don't think I'm going to get close to that. The start of the year is way too slow for me. But I'm crushing quite a few like decently long books while I'm here on vacation, which is really nice. And if I get a few points like that, like there's other book series I love. Like there's one called Red Rising, another sci-fi series. That one is 6 books deep at this point. And that one's great for kind of challenging your way of thinking. But what I like about this is it is like a bit weirder than Red Rising in some ways. And it's just like a bit more submersive. It's like a bit more under the surface in terms of like challenging your way of thinking, which I kind of like. And yeah, it's been really good. So anyway, that's all I wanted to hop on here and talk about was God Emperor of Dune and good administrators versus bad administrators. What am I? How do I apply that to my life? If you guys like this, hey, check out my other podcast. Check out Dune. Watch the movies. But always, I would tell anyone out there, hey, be more assertive. Unless you're already too assertive, like I think you'll know. Maybe be self-aware because then you'll know if you're assertive enough or not. And then be more assertive because assertive people live happier lives because they basically just aren't willing to let life just happen to them. They're willing to make life happen. And, I think just you have to find things you love. I don't necessarily have a form of creation that I love in terms of like art or music, although I do enjoy podcasting. But I really enjoy, I just always have, watching movies. Reading has become a top thing for me too. And just, find things that you love and do those things. If you say, oh, I can't afford to, like, you just have to make time. At the end of the day, you just have to like make time, and you make time for things that you prioritize or you don't. And that's what it's kind of all about, right? So, hey, thanks for checking in. Thanks for checking this episode of Gordo and the F words. What F word does this fall under? Fliterature. Fliterature. This is about fliterature, this episode. And hey, if you're reading the Dune books, send me a message. Let me know what you think about them. If you've watched the Dune movie or movies, because there's 1984 Dune by David Lynch, the 2000 miniseries by the Sci-Fi Channel, and then they did a second miniseries called it Children of Dune, which I've never actually seen this one, but apparently it covers Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. And then, of course, the Denis Villeneuve Dune movies that came out. So I think he's just planning to do Dune Messiah because it's just, and he says this in interviews too, it's just so hard with some of the things that go on in the Dune universe to keep making them in movie format and not suck. And I think he can, I feel like he's going to, you kind of have like the Dune movies in one line and the books in the other line. And I think you're kind of having them like, as they make movies, they're going to have to separate it, I think, to make it palatable viewing experiences. And I think also to kind of honor the original text too, just because I think to just do a direct cover, to do a direct movie of a book, I think kind of also is just not fair to the original book. Like it's not going to draw people in for the first time and stuff. Like I think you need to respectfully find those deviation points. So if you like Dune, let me know. If you don't, also let me know. I love to hear that. And what do you guys think? Is a good administrator, manager, leader even one of action or one of like listening? I think we like listening leaders. I like listening when I'm in leadership roles. But at the end of the day, just there's going to be one person responsible for a decision, and it's up to them. Like, and this is kind of another caveat too I could talk about for a while is responsibility. No, sorry. Responsibility without authority. One of the toughest places in life to be stuck is in a place where you have the responsibility to do something, but then you haven't been given authority to do it. And I think it's just horribly ridiculous to do that, you know? And it's like, I guess it's fine if you're setting people up with certain job descriptions or certain roles to have one over the other. But I think too many times in life, honestly, people get stuck in response. They're responsible. And maybe I'm kind of framing this. Well, I guess it would be through multiple work experiences, actually. I've seen it in religious institutions, and I've seen it in the market itself too. But yeah, when it comes to like hiring people or setting up, what's that called? Not job pyramids. When you're setting up like org charts, just like let people that are responsible make decisions, you know? And I think like, it's kind of like, I don't know. I maybe at this point in my life too, I'm just kind of excited for new things and change and for the mess that comes with that sometimes. And it's okay to be like a little bit messy to like at least do something rather than like not do anything at all. So I don't know. There's still like quite a bit there to unpack, but yeah, good administrators are just people like Leto said, 5 heartbeats. They make decisions 5 heartbeats sooner than bad administrators. And I kind of love that. There's like simplicity there. It takes pressure off and it's kind of cool. And it's just kind of cool when you're reading a story about a half human, half sandworm and they get you and they say something that gets you thinking. I really love that. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks for tuning in and we'll catch you next time. Peace.